Hello and welcome back to this special episode of the Insurrection Interviews podcast and to Magic and Ecology, the series of online and in-person events where we aim to think the uncertainty of this planet's future through the possibilities thrown up by the concept of magic or possibility itself. I am Simone Kotva, and together with my co-host Alice Tarbuck, we're talking capitalist sorcery, animism, and so much more with Professor Isabelle Stengers. Isabelle Stengers is Professor of Philosophy at the Free University of Brussels, Belgium, an internationally acclaimed philosopher and cultural theorist. Isabelle is the co-author with Philippe Pignard of Capitalist Sorcery, Breaking the Spell, a remarkable essay demonstrating how the concept and person of the witch, as one who herself is capable of enchantment, wields a similar power to the capitalism that feeds ecological crisis and is thus uniquely placed to resist its spell. Magic is a theme Isabelle explores in many subsequent publications, for instance, Reclaiming Animism, which appeared in Eflux 26 in 2012, and most recently in English translation, Hypnosis, Between Science and Magic. Isabelle approaches magic as a practice with political as well as critical relevance, and as a reminder that today those of us who are raised to smirk at such things find it increasingly difficult to defend a view of the non-human world that does not recognize in it lively agency. Her writing engages with living traditions of magic and is an experiment in learning with those for whom the non-human is not a mass of inert stuff, but the spirited life world demanding our attention and interaction. Isabelle also worked on the French translation of The Spell of the Sensuous, Perception and Language in a More Than Human World by David Abram, who spoke with us in an earlier episode of the podcast. And both Isabelle and David's work together have been an inspiration for this project, so it is a special delight to have her with us here today. Joining us also today are Beth Dubo and Jack Bololi. Jack did his PhD in the Faculty of English at the University of Cambridge, and Beth is a PhD student in the same faculty. Last academic year, just as we were headed for our first COVID-19 lockdown, Beth and Jack were part of the Magic and Ecology reading group, where we discussed, among others, Isabelle's work, and we are so happy that they could join us for this conversation. So welcome everyone, and welcome especially Isabelle.
Hello.
I think I'll start with a question about how you came to magic. One of the refreshing and really unusual things about your approach to magic is that you engage with contemporary practitioners of magic, such as Starhawk, who is a reclaiming witch. This is unusual because I think a lot of the times when philosophers write about magic, they tend to steer away from magic as a practice in the contemporary world, preferring to treat it perhaps as a worldview held by peoples far away from us. So I'd so like to know what led you to write about contemporary witches and what brought you to magic in the first place.
Well, the first thing to say that I was never interested in world review, and I always tried to work on Western practice, the practice I can meet, encounter without any kind of, I will go away of myself. So this is why I was also interested in diplomacy, how to speak with scientists, for instance, without insulting them, but also without accepting all what they say, or at least how they tell it. So if I met magic, it's because I met something which to me did strongly belong to our own problematic environment. And I met it, in fact, it was completely by chance because there was nothing like that in Belgium. But I was in US on a Whitehead conference, in fact, and a friend of mine, maybe because she knew how I was thinking and what could interest me, told me, you should buy this book at a bookshop. And it was Dreaming the Dark of Starhawk. And I was a bit disturbed because I was fearing it would be New Age, and I have no patience for New Age, in fact. But I began reading it, knowing that I would uh, close the book down as soon as I felt New Age being present, and uh, and I came to the last page without closing it, and I came at the last page considerably transformed. So reading it was a bit of a kind of magic, and I also was shocked that uh, I did not know those neo-pagan witches she was speaking about. And I was doubly shocked because this was a second encounter 2 years after. This was 98. Here it was just after the Seattle demonstration. I remember I told friends, I'm sure witches are there. And 2 days after, I received a mail. It was the first of the series of mails the Star put online, and it was about how they shut the WTO. And there I felt magic, what I would call magic. Nothing uh, astonishing, but I knew reading this text that I had to stop everything and translate it and put it in online myself. And many people did that. I discovered there were at least three French versions of this same text. So I was doubly shocked because I understood that those pagan reclaiming movements, which had been created in 82, had survived till the Seattle and after, which is really impressive because they were, Stark tells it, they were created in order to resist what was coming, and which you in England know only too well because there are these twin powers of Reagan and Thatcher. uh, so at that time, I decided that I would seriously, uh, let's say, involve myself at least not directly in magic rituals because you cannot do it alone. To me, it's collective. It means to have an ecological environment receptive to that, but to create this environment that is to have a book by Starhawk, Dreaming the Dark first, and uh, uh, works on the movement, the altermondialist movement, after, to have it translated. And I may say that it was not a success, a library success, but since 5 years it's beginning. French is beginning to open itself to a lot of things it had Cartesianly uh, banished. So my encounter with Starhawk was really not some kind of an illumination, but it is possible to produce in our times some kind of revival, not not going back to, but reclaiming what was destroyed since so many centuries. And it is this experience of what I call now resurgence, which I am really now working for and writing on. So my encounter with Starhawk was, you can speak about magic in a way which is pragmatic. Pragmatic meaning that if there are witches, it's in order to get the strength to to uh, to resist and to survive and to live through our dark times. So I can go on with Stark, but I will often quote her because to me, it was a starting point, and it's still the ground I work with. And many of the words I would use for magic are, in fact, related, and to the ecology of magic, are in fact related to what I learned first with her.
Thank you so much. And I think we'll come back to some of those words as we go along. And this idea of the pragmatism of magic, I think, speaks to what Alice wanted to bring up.
Yes, thank you. I think pragmatism is kind of, for me, the perfect word here. One of the things that I would really like to ask about was the extent to which that kind of pragmatism comes up in and around the idea of capitalist sorcery. And I'm very, very interested, possibly coming right back to Starhawk here, what, to your mind, are the means of pursuing an expanded truth-seeking magical practice which can exist outside the realm of metaphor and within the realm of the practical, of precisely the pragmatic?
Indeed, it can be said that magic was successfully reduced to some kind of a metaphor in our countries. Oh, the magic of this event, of this moment, and all that. But it doesn't signify nothing in particular. But we can say in contrast, and this was the point of capitalist sorcery, that our worlds are saturated by magic. Meaning, obviously, all the market tricks to have you wishing to buy things, but so all this kind of stuff. We have technicians of magic, market people and politicians too. But also, more darkly, maybe there is some kind of a spell which is which makes us devoid of power to answer the power structures and the oppressive structure. We know it's bad, but the way we tackle with it seems inefficient. And I think that it would mean that, in fact, we feel we have banished magic. We do not believe in magic anymore. We are all rational, but it made us quite vulnerable to some kind of magic which does not tell its name. People who use this magic don't know about magic, but they have learned it what works. And magic is nothing if it doesn't work. That's pragmatism. So we are in a world where you do not need, and it's even better that you do not recognize magic when it's used on you, because if you don't recognize it, you cannot defend yourselves against it. And indeed, we are naive and vulnerable in comparison with other cultures. Well, they're faraway cultures where what is called sorcery, which is a kind of magic, is an object of culture, which means pragmatically that it is recognized and people know how to defend themselves. We can think of a culture of sorcery because it's a problem, it's a matter of concern. It makes people think and discriminate and recognize the effect of this thing. And we are unable to do it. So we use reason. We criticize people, those manipulation through reason and to some kind of reference to truth. But this kind of truth is completely devoid of power, of efficacy against magic. It's not the kind of answer to magic we have to give. So we are naive, and it seems to me that we are the point of magic, one of the point of magic today, and it was that one of the main theme of capitalist sorcery is to recognize the magic exercised on us and to try to answer it, to free us from it, and to produce counter spell, if I may say. So to me, is it a truth-seeking practice, as you said? I am a bit. We should discuss that, but truth is a dangerous word because it may mean that uh, we can recognize true and we can demand true. We can demand from things or manifestation or claims, are they true or are they not? Well, some are just untrue in a trivial way, but truth is not a trivial question. It really depends on the kind of register, on the kind of practice which is involved in this question of truth. Scientific truth has nothing to do with what could be called magic truth or even spiritual truth. If you try, so truth seeking is something which I'm not sure that magic is first of all truth thinking. I think it's strength thinking. Starhawk speaks about will. What makes me takes me in action and in thought. It's not a belief, but it's the will, a will for life to go on. And in her books, in her later books, she called activists to maintain the vision, maintaining a vision. That's will. Will is not something which would be sovereign, my freedom, my will. No. It's really maintaining with obstinacy against the temptation to say it's lost too badly and all that. So I think that will may come before truth when some enterprise of seeking truth are concerned. The will to maintain, and magic is, let's say, nourishing, fostering this will.
Thank you so much. I think that for me, strength seeking is such a lovely resonant term.
Well, yes, and one of the earliest Starhawk theme is that one of the aspects of what happened to us is the fear men entertain against women strength. We can say women power, but I prefer strength because power is always, as soon as you criticize patriarchy, you say, oh, you want matriarchy. So who will get the power? So rival, getting the power. No, what feeds strength, personal and collective strength, to me is a much better way, not to come to rivalry between matriarchy and patriarchy. No, when witches are telling about women, it's not in terms of matriarchy.
No, and I love the idea that actually strength is the more important term.
And I think that magic is very often an art. Well, it's an art of many things, of sounds, of movements, of visions, and all that. But it's also taking care of words. knowing that if you tell the word power, many associations will defeat what you wish to transfer, and then you choose strength.
Yes, the knowing of the correct resonances of the
Yes.
vocabulary. I'm going to pass you back over to Simone now.
Thank you. I wanted to talk more about something that struck me when I first read your work, and which goes back to how this particular way you have of approaching magic, which is so generative. I first came across a reference to your work, the work with Pignard, many years ago when I was studying the philosophy of Gilles Deleuze for my doctoral work. And capitalist sorcery was mentioned in a footnote as an example of what a Deleuzean approach to contemporary magic could look like, or perhaps would have looked like. A way of approaching magic that would not other magic by writing about it as some exotic worldview, but would instead seek to think with it, speak with it, and work with it. And I wondered if this is a fair representation of something of your method there.
Well, I think that it's a fair representation, certainly, and I am very, let's say, proud. I don't find other word now. I'm French speaking, as you may understand. So all words do not come easily. But also of my relation with Deleuze philosophy, because one of the things is said that philosophy is creation of concepts, and concepts are to be used as tools for thinking. They force you to a good tool, not an instrument. That's very important distinction in my register. Not an instrument, but a tool transforms both the one who use it and transform what you use it on. So tool is a transformating, learning to use a tool is a transformative experience. And indeed, I would say that, and for Starhawk too, because when she was asked, when she answered the questions, but why do you use magic? There are other words. Yes, but I wanted to shock. I wanted not to be like a metaphor. I wanted to produce a shock, and I am interested in that because it's abnormal to say to use magic not as a worldview, romantic worldview, and all that. I am not sure that or foreign people, the people from elsewhere are romantic, not at all. But in our terms, it becomes romantic, and no, it must disturb thought. It must disturb of thought routines. I am also Jamesian because of that. He says that it's a difficult thought for us. And well, the word magic is one of our word. I'm not sure that the word that other peoples use this word. So, but when you deal with a difficult idea, you can very easily, very quickly escape it, exclude it, and remain in your own familiar world. But you can, and here again we find the term will, you can will it to remain. And then it will slowly call for other ideas and transform your mindset. You see? So the will to become able to think with magic, it's something you have to learn. It's not something you believe it, but it's something you have to connect with in order for this term and question to transform you. And I think that this transformation, I am still in the process of exploring it, exploring as it transforms itself, and that also I am not alone. I think that in many part of, even in many part of the academic, this maybe not with the word magic, but this similar parallel transformations are happening, and maybe intersecting. So I think that we live a very interesting moment, both from the point of view on all ecologicals, from all ecologicals point of view, not only the ecology of living beings, landscapes and all that, but other landscape, practical landscape, political landscape, and also collective landscapes, and even maybe academic landscape, but this is much rare. But when you think to, for instance, environmental humanities, and as we can associate it with Deborah Rose in Australia, and also people she formed, I forgot his name. That's the point of flights. The author of Flightways. You know, when I read, I don't know if you know Deborah Rose.
Yes.
Yes.
But when I
Alice.
read, yes, when I read Wild Dog Dreaming, my first sensation was, well, Virginia Woolf say that the women would change nothing in the university. They would be transformed into university. And I say, well, maybe not. Maybe she was wrong. Maybe this book is something written inside university, and which tell us about another way of writing and asking writing, well, let's say academic text. So there is such books, such fields like environmental humanities and all that, to me are, we can say it's scientific because there is nothing anti-scientific, but it's a science which opens itself beyond itself and makes us feel, which has a deliberately spiritual dimension. It happens, it exists, and to me, I did not know it did exist 20 years ago. Things change.
I wonder if this would be a good moment to bring up something which I was thinking of asking a bit later, but you just mentioned Deborah Rose and Tom van Doren's work,
Yes.
Lightways.
Yeah.
And one of the concepts that Tom writes about a lot is the art of attentiveness and attention, which is also something that you write a lot about in your work as the sort of the technique, if you like, of magic. Or the pragmatic tool that it offers us is this art of learning how to be attentive and to pay attention. I wonder if you could just say a bit more about that, and then I'll hand back to Alice.
Yes, but I think that for people who are not living in towns and have everything made to instruments, made to serve you, and you can count on it. It's very easy not to be attentive. You go as a zombie to wait for a bus. A bus comes, you take the bus, you go. I think that for people whose life is not easy and who live in more, let's say, wild, but without romantic, but wild conditions. Attention is a matter of life and death. So it's really for us that attention must be an art. And I would say that it's something which impressed me when I read, when I was speaking about capitalism, or I read, I wrote it also in Catastrophic Time. We were told, we were really told uh, not to pay attention. So the first experience to me is the insistence on not to pay attention to consequences, to effects of the way we are living, the way we are thinking, and all that. So it's really the the pressure, the imperative of irresponsibility also, which marks to me one of the aspects of the ecological devastation. You know, when you and I think that the fact that progress has lost its power on us is that we cannot accept any longer not to pay attention to the consequences of what we call progress. On, so it's really, I would say, it's part of resurgence. The art of paying attention come back in what Anna Tsing called the ruins. Living in the ruins implies paying attention, because you cannot technically, I would say a ruin, it's a place where you cannot trust uh, to walk without looking where you put your feet. You have to pay attention in ruins, because nothing is given, nothing is warranted. And I think that our times are times where we have to learn to pay attention. Uh, but magic is not only paying attention, but I think also, because it's very general, but also to cultivate attention and to honor, to celebrate, to say thank you to what you have been able to feel as an event, as something which matters and which changed you. It's, I would say, it's attention, and it's also which is related, because James, for instance, said that when you deal with a difficult idea, you encounter a difficult, you can forget about it. Uh, you can forget if you will not to do it. If you decide to will to keep it in mind, to maintain it in your mind, then you may experience change. And magic would tell then, uh, say thank you, say thank you, feel gratitude, because this event that you have been transformed is a kind of spiritual event. It's a spiritual event. It's not just I changed my mind. No, I changed, point. It's a kind of spiritual event which demands, which needs more than demands. Because you can forget, it has not the power to demand, but it needs gratitude. It needs to be recognized as such. And this is a cultivation of attention, to feel it's not given, it's not normal. It is what may change a situation, may change you. And I think that one of the many ways to characterize modernity is, well, progress, but also, let's say, not to pay attention to the price, what we call progress, demands, and also ingratitude, ungratefulness. Gratitude, grateful, ungratefulness, saying, well, it's normal, it's due, I deserved it, or to say, well, it just depends on, and to not to stop and say there has been change, and it's something which again I understand from Starhawk, because when the witches sing the goddess, because we will have to speak about the goddess maybe, when they have a refrain which to me was very interesting. It was no, not interesting, no, moving. She changes everything she touches, and everything she touches changes. Well, you see, it's very clever as a formulation. Magic formulation are usually clever. She, the goddess, changes, which means an action of something on something else. She changes. She's the active one. And the second part is, and everything she touches changes. And here it's a thing which has been touches, which changes, and here is active. Here it is active, it changes its own way. So you have a thinking about change where we are not where change is not or to create, but it's or to welcome, or to accept, or to cultivate. Everything she touches change. We have to allow ourselves to be touched, and not to close against being touched, but the change will be ours, and not the pure consequences depending on her. So it's a very, very, to me, a very, very interesting way of articulating attention, which is disponibility and activity, because I mean, we have to enact a change which attention makes possible. So it's not an ecstatic attention, you see. This is why I say it's the same as about truth. When truth seeking, yes, maybe, but will also. Will the will is not the will to change. No, the will to maintain the vision which will be fostered by the change.
Thank you. I realized that as soon as you mentioned that formulation, it reminded me there is a song in which it is used as part of a chant for Kore, the goddess, which I think is really beautiful. So I was wondering if before the question that I have written to ask, perhaps we could take a little moment to speak about the role of the goddess who changes things and is change and allows us to change, and the way in which the goddess kind of features in Starhawk's work and how it relates to your work on magic.
Mm-hmm. Well, Starhawk tells, and it's something which was important for me because I am not. To me, goddess had no. In California, in US in general, the proposition, the goddess, has a power of its own, because they usually are much more religious than we are in Belgium. I mean, we are rather mécréants, you know. In Belgium, it's so to say the goddess is But so when she said it's not a matter of, I'm not even sure I am believing in the goddess, but in rituals we try to connect with the goddess as a source of force. So the goddess is it's the presence of the goddess in the rituals, which gives to the goddess its let's say its relevance for people who never thought in terms of God or goddess as I never did. Well, when I was a metaphysical adolescent a bit, but feminism took me out of it. So, and I did want to go back to that. But to connect with, how to connect with, and to connect with something which you name, and you name in relation with the connection you want to establish. And when I read him, and when I read her, I thought that maybe what I would call her, it's a generative power, and and this then may be related to the gratitude, the thank you. There is a charge of the goddess, which is well known, which looks like an ancient text, but I think has been rewritten, but I have not followed that. And where the goddess proclaims, "I am where there is pleasure, where there is inventness. I am." So the goddess is nowhere but in generative joys, pleasure, everything which is generative,
Yeah.
which produce something which is not caused by condition, but it's which are event which enlarge reality. And so the goddess, and that's what Starhawk calls in its inspired dance the mystery. And I understand well that when you see a child uh, during his first steps, well, but you can be, and you can have a gratitude not towards someone or somebody specific, but in this generative power which makes the child able of what he was not able, and which will open to the child a new world, you see. But when you see a plant germinating, you can also feel this gratitude and this idea that you can explain everything about that, but your explanation will always come after the fact, and because this fact has been possible, this first step, this power of germination of the plant, this joy doing that and all that. So it's one of, when I told you the truth uh, has many meanings, you can produce rather truthful explanation about that and that and that, but you will never empty the concrete event you feel, and the more right manner into which to welcome this fact is, it can be explained, but also that you must say thank you for this happening. So to me, the goddess is a resource to 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 connect with when you need strength and gratitude. Gratitude not toward the will of some supernatural person. There is nothing supernatural in the first step of a child or a plant germinating, but uh, the gratitude for the ongoingness of life, which is let's say woven with those events, those generative events. Mm.
Thank you. I think that captures for me really perfectly a way of conceptualizing the goddess
Uh-huh.
as in kind of multiplicity and the non-supernatural, which I think really connects to a lot of what we're talking about today, regarding kind of ecology and magic in the world as it is. So to kind of move gently back towards the question that I had written, because I'm aware that we have limited time and much to get through. One of the things you've just been speaking about is the way in which the goddess is a resource, as someone, something that can be thanked and drawn on. And I wonder if perhaps there are ways that narrative and stories and the power of words can perhaps feel a bit like that. And I wanted to ask about the way that stories relate, or narrative relates to magic that can speak back to power structures.
I think that, well, it's to speak back is let's pay attention, because power structure could do they listen? Do we hope they listen? No, I think we can speak in front of power. Maybe it would be better to say in front of power structure, but for others to listen. Not the power structure. They are not listening. I'm not sure they are hearing anything. they are not gifted to hear, but we can. Yes, I think that there are narrative which I think power structures, let's say, feed on some kinds of stories. Some kind of stories where, and what is important is not to share, even if they seem not the same, but not to share those kind of stories at all. It's something which Ursula Le Guin said very well in her essay, the theory of the carrier bag fiction. She speaks about those narratives where you are always winner, where you have loser, where you have heroism, where you have hardship and courage to confront the hardship, which is not the will to maintain. And she said we need other narrative, and those will not speak uh, to power. Those will speak about the world which power does not even see, but to have it flourish and to have it recognize its own strength. Ursula Le Guin, against her, she said that science fiction writers are realists of a wider reality. And I think that enlarging reality, where power need to define reality, enlarging reality is a way to at least to escape power, and then eventually find ways to counteract its power. But and I've seen that in France, it's interesting. I don't know if you heard about the zone à défendre, ZAD, they say, zone to be defended, which was succeeded in having a new airport left. Well, the story is complicated, but I understood it was important when I saw that they succeeded in resisting all the kind of division, the powers, and the powers even just journalists too, that try to in order to divide them, they try to divide between violent and non-violent practices and all that. There were very many, and they succeeded to see, to understand it was a trick of power, and to will themselves to be more intelligent than us accepting division. So they knew that there were division, but those division would not get the power to divide them. And I think that those stories which tell how something which divides do not need to create division are very precious. The story also where you think you understand how it will end, and then it escaped this end. I was thinking this morning to those narratives which had I had loved, even if there was no magic and all that. And I remember that in the year 87, two magic movie pictures, magic movie were produced. One was Babette's Feast, and the other Baghdad Coffee. And in the two of them, uh, 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 something which you some kind of escaping the grasp of usual sad ex- uh, psychological explanation, or the grasp of the grip of uh, the sad religious belief in, I am you have to look at those films to understand, but there was something which was not happy end but opening to what was not anticipated as possible but was possible nevertheless. And I think this sense we are we are really fed with, in the name of reality, uh, we have fed with sad stories, or stories where the winner deserved to win, or the defeat was explained by a weakness. All those stories which let's say, and when it's finished, but it's finished. And the idea of resurgence is a very precious idea, because it's not finished. It's going on. It may go on. Uh, and so I think that it's very hard to say which kind of it's very hard to say which kind of narrative may have some kind of magic power, because you have to feel it. You have to. There is no recipe. There are examples, and those examples you find in science fiction, you find it in poems, but it's an art of effect, you know.
Mhm.
Does it open the sense of possibility? Not does it open imagination and not imaginary? That's, to me, a very important distinction. You know, imaginary, it's usually passive. I would say even plaintive, you know. Our people are not bad, are not good, and all that. And you dream of a better world. No, magic and dreams are, well, maybe related, but to an art of dreams, a culture of a cultivation of dreams. But passive dreams, imaginary, and magic should be distinguished, because magic is an opening of collective sensibility and imagination, which has nothing to do with imaginary. When the witches conveyed in ritual, they say often it's to do the work of the goddess. But the goddess does not tell what is this work. And it's always here and now, in this condition, what in this condition, facing this issue, this problem, this situation, what should we do? And they say, what is the work of the goddess. But what they are waiting from this question is that their imagination opens to the situation. The imagination opens to the possibility of the situation, and invent with the possibility of the situation, and not the realist evaluation of the balance of power and all that. And I think it's very important to distinguish imaginary and imagination because of that, because of this opening to the possible, which does not belong to us but to the situation, to open to the situation, while imaginary, it's the human who takes all the place.
Yeah, sorry, just to sort of jump in here, but I think on the basis then that we've been talking a lot about stories and the importance of stories that can enlarge and open, and that stories are then related to concepts, which you've described, Isabelle, as being important sort of tools for thinking and concepts that can transform the person as well as the audience. And I wanted to ask, sort of within the realm of narrative, words, individual words, are of course stories themselves, or participate in stories themselves, and have a storying power. And with that in mind, I wanted to ask how you sort of arrived at your own critical vocabulary, the one you use now, in terms of the individual words, and whether actually there are any words which still draw you, but about which perhaps you remain undecided.
Well, I am, you are not, if somewhere words communicate with tools you are not undecided about tools as such. But you are undecided about the relevance, or the relevance today. One of the so it is the situation which is undecided. One of the thing which also which is a matter of concern, which has no magic resolution, because there is no magic resolution. There is magic transformation, but not resolution. Problems are going on, but today can, I would say, what can be the relation between the kind of power we can associate it with magic, and the other kind of power we can associate it with anger, with rage, with outrage, because there is a connection. Both are in front of oppressive structures, but they produce pragmatically rather different effects. And what I fear is that outrage can refuse the magic proposition as too soft. And outrage demands, blinding yourself to consequences. It's I will do it. Whatever happens, I need to deserve it, and anyway, there is no other option, and all that. But it's such a strength, and it's such a I can understand so well those who choose anger and rage and outrage, and then the slow pace of transformations, that I am undecided on how to describe this hesitation in a way which would be productive, which would change something in this confrontation.
Mm.
It's really to me a problem of our epoch, because there is so many reasons to be angry and to say there is no other issue than confrontation, destruction, and all that. It's such a temptation. And what make me undecided is that the very fact I do not feel this rage overwhelming me. I can feel it, but it does not overwhelm me, may mark me as a privileged person.
Hmm.
So this is pragmatic indecision. I don't feel I have the tools to think with that in an interesting way, because I again, Starhawk wrote about it very interesting, but she was in the situation which I am not for the present. For the present, it was in Genova. There were the Black Bloc intervened, and the police, the state, Italian state, reacted with utter violence. There was one dead and all that, and there was some reaction about non-violent activists saying it's the fault of Black Bloc. And there she knew what to do. She said, we cannot say that. We need the anger. We cannot take the moral position to say no to the Black Bloc and exclude them from our imaginary existence. They exist, in fact. They don't ask our permission, so it would be imaginary, but dark imaginary, since it would make a relation with the police much easier.
Mm.
But she said there is only one thing. We have to learn to communicate. Well, how to compose anger and imagination. But we cannot learn that in general, and you have to be two in order to learn. So I'm not sure. I don't feel the good person to say very interesting thing. So I am undecided.
So there isn't then a kind of an abstract critical vocabulary that is always useful, but words that are useful in particular circumstances. And one of the challenges of that is in moments of outrage and despair, trying to find the words that will continue to enlarge and open, rather than the words which just can convey the feeling of despair that one might be overwhelmed by.
Yes, but it's an uneasy task to find those words, because they may always be listened as words asking the other to accept, while they don't wish to accept. They refuse to accept. So it's very hard to find the words, and I think they will be needed, because there is a rage which is mounting to, and voila. You ask me where I am undecided. Indeed, I don't feel I am the one who can be very interesting about that, because I am probably, that's where I have to accept that I am part of a privileged world. But maybe those peoples who seem to succeed not to hate us while we have tried to destroy them should be listened there.
Yes.
People.
Yeah, it's a that
we should ask their help.
Yes.
How did you succeed not hating us?
Indeed.
It's lovely to hear you being open about that need for undecidedness and that questioning, because that can be quite a rare thing. It can be so easy to rush for reconciliation, and that that is the critical task we have asked to do. So it's yeah, very lovely and useful to think about holding that space.
Thank you.
And maybe this leads into a question I was going to ask, because I suppose one thing that's often used as a way into resisting that reach for rage or reach for sudden action is a kind of appeal to slowness or to delay, and to, you know, the long time scales of the ecological, the long time scales of non-human actors, non-human practices. So yes, one of the questions I wanted to ask was, if magic is about engaging with practices that are non-human on a time scale which is non-human, what implications does this have for our own practices of storytelling, narrating, working with and operating with, making things into tools? How do we accommodate the fact that our timings will always look too fast or too slow?
Well, it depends what is our timing, because well, one of the very important experiences I had, and I relate in some papers, is participating in what could be called a palavra. You know this word? This word? So it is the Portuguese word palavra, which they use discovering how African people were taking collective decision. Huh? Palavra, palavra,
Yes.
palavra. Okay, and it's slow. It Portuguese were anxious because of so it's indeed slow. And I did participate in fact in Brussels. It was just with African people. It was a mixed origin encounter between white and African, about a problem of mixed, a private problem, in fact, of mixed marriage. And for the African, the two parts had to bring their people. So there were some whites and some blacks. But we did it as they wished, as they proposed. And they did not really propose. It was their way we accepted. And their ways was very interesting, because it was surely not argumentating. Argument is quick. Argument is because you listen to the other and you know how to answer and counter what he said and impose your own claim or opinion and all that. And the whole politeness of the meeting was to avoid that, to avoid the power of argumentation. And it is as if we were all, that's my way of telling, knowing if we were encountering it was because we knew things about, I call it the order. We knew something about the order of the world, but the problem, the order of the world was mute for this problem. So we had to have him traverser, to have him go through this solution, and so everything someone said was listening to, translating one aspect of the order of the world, and it changed everything because you did not discuss it, and it meant that everything you said, and I saw my white partners, accept the same transformation, took an impersonal allure, and And it turned. There were repetition, reprise, and all that slowness. And at the end, there was agreement. You can say it's magic, you know. Uh, uh, Donna Haraway would say it's composting, you know. That's a thing which feel that they know what they say, get inflected and enter into some kind of composition which belongs to nobody. Nobody has won. Nobody has won. But the fact is that we agree. It takes time. But I think that, and I think that it's some kind of a non-human time, because it's not our human argumentation. If I have said that, then no, there is no then. There is no thus and no then. There is addition and composition between what is added. So I think that in magic there is something like that, which is that, well, we are human. So, but to say that since we are human, nothing human is foreign to us, which is a great humanist credo, you know, I am human, nothing. No, we are human, and most of what we are doing are foreign to us as human. What happens in our cells, in our brains, in between us, all that cannot be human. All that is one way or another ecological, but we discover it as we do it. We cannot say it's human. So I think that there is obviously this insistence that the time is short and all that, but I tend to think that the time is not so short, because whatever happens, or the next generation will be numerous. It will take centuries, and their life will be harder and harder. So our responsibility now is to try to do something which we can leave them something which may help them in this dreary future we cannot anticipate really. So it needs time to produce counter poisons. We are deeply poisoned. Speed, argumentation as killing and vanquishing or winning, and we are deeply poisoned. And if we find some ways of doing something else, which I think activists are doing now, and academic could learn to do. It may be the thing which is asked from our generations, which are still just anticipating. But I'm living knowing that people who are born this century, some of you maybe, will know things I just cannot imagine. But my concern is to produce things which could help them. And this takes time.
Thank you. That's really useful and heartening. I suppose if I can just, so the second part of the question I was going to ask is, I think one of the things that I think often inspires this sense of rage and crisis and the need to do something now is a kind of grief for what is lost, or whether that's an immediate sense of loss or a recognition that, you know, the effect of the poison is done and it has happened, that we are standing in the wake of certain kinds of, whether we think of them as genocide or ecocide or sort of unretrievable loss. And I wondered whether, this is how in your thinking maybe this links to your use of the term resurgence here and things coming back when they've apparently been lost. I mean, how do we balance the tension between acknowledging that practices are still at work and things are still recoverable, still resurgent? How do we balance that with recognizing that there are things to be mourned, there are things that have been abandoned practices, things that have been destroyed. How do we hold those together?
I was very touched, but touch also means I thought a lot with Tom Van Doren ways of flight, because indeed, first, yes, there is loss and there is mourning, but mourning, not morning.
Yes.
But what is interesting, it's not we are losing a lot our patrimonial, you know. no, there is more when he speaks about albatrosses dying from plastic and all things of that. You feel that it's a change, an ongoing change of life succeeding to the work of life which cannot go on. So it's the breaking of the ongoingness of that, which is in fact, yes, a non-human temporality and not our loss, which is to be mourned. But also, I love about the thickness of time. Indeed, I think that and resurgence. I do think that I love this idea of Donna Haraway of what she calls the Stulusen, you know. And the Stulusen is a matter of tentacular affects. When we say loss, we can and being touched is a tentacular affect. When if, for instance, a great painting, I don't know, La Joconde was destroyed, we say, what a loss. This is not a tentacular affect. It is a work which is destroyed. But tentacular, it's not an ongoing thing, an ongoing albatross line succeeding in keeping alive in time. So, and there will be no resurgence of the goddess of the Joconde, but Stulusen and the thickness mean that what is lost may come back, but under another form. This is what the term to me reclaim means, and why it is very important. Reclaiming is to become able again, and that's a work of what we have been separated. So it's not reappropriating, meaning it's mine because I produced it, or it's ours. It's not the question being ours, it's the question of this separation made us unable of certain things. And reclaiming means healing from this separation, becoming able again. And you do not become able again the same way as what was as you no your ancestors were when it was destroyed. It comes back, but it's come back now, and it's come back in the now condition, but the now is thick with the possibility of resurgence. So it's really the loss does not mean let's say the sterilization. The thickness of the present means that the past is still active, and it may be active in memory, and it may be active in something else than memory. you know, when the goddess was the culture of the goddess, as they said in California at that time in the 70s, was uh, rather strong. Monique Wittig, a French exile, there was very often quoted in the Les Guerrières. She said, remember, there was a time when you, and she celebrates time when women were free and strong and all that. And you say you cannot remember, remember nevertheless. Remember, and if you can't, invent. But you do not invent from scratch. It's not pure invention. Remembering is inventing. It's inventing for now. So I would say that when I said that for Starhawk, what makes them what makes her struggle, it's the will for life to continue, the will for life to go on. It's not especially human life, it may be human life, but the point is not, and it should be human life. No, there must be ongoingness. Then there must be ongoingness. Finally, maybe, but the problem is that there, even as I always say, ongoingness, Stulusen is what was, what is, and what may be. There is a doubt. There is a doubt, and this doubt maybe does not concern us directly. Maybe we will not be saved, but anyway, we have to work on for something worth it, and not worth to us, goes on.
On the subject then of ongoingness and the ways in which we might be able to use words and concepts that in the face of great destruction can nevertheless seed forms of thought that will be there then for others to use, and which might work for this sense of ongoingness. And we've talked about how this, or referred to ways in which this happens in a place of ritual, in invocation, and the way this might happen in a place of protest. But my final question is, I wanted to ask what you think it means, or how this happens when we bring these words and forms, the language of magic particularly, into an academic setting, which has, at least in recent centuries, disavowed that language and prided itself on its rejection, and how, and just what it means then for that language to be brought back into the academy, into that institution.
I will, if I wanted to speak about the academy, even as a particular institution, as my university, or the academy as a worldwide institution, I would say nothing. The point is not the academy as this kind of institution. The point to me is the kind of interstices we can create in the institution, and interstice is always plural. It's something I try to write in Capitalist Sorcery. We do not a material, not matter, which is an abstraction, but a material may change its property because of not one interstice, but the many interstices which can crisscross it. And so I think that but interstices are collective, and they may be non-perceptible to the institution, or the institution may tolerate it. I have part of a group which is not, let's say that if people speak about magic, they will not say, wow, what is that? So we have no cult of rationality, but of relevance and life and joy in working together when we work together. Well, my institution which is not English, that meaning that it's less dreary. Well, it tolerates it. Rather proud, a bit like, oh, it's good and okay. But and we cannot change a lot. We can change a bit our lives, and but in the future, I would say that relations, complicity relation, a coalition between interstitial groups who try to do otherwise, who help each other to do otherwise, and all that may not change the institution. I'm not sure it can be changed, but may produce another other possible around the institution, because some students, at least in my country, but maybe in yours, I don't know, because to me, the English university is a nightmare. But some students demand something else. So to be able to work with those students, to work with this idea that other manners to produce so-called scientific knowledge, but science not with a big S, but with a small s, and sciences, and to connect sciences with today's issue in a different way, and all those are adventure which need people being related to institution, at least through their education. So to produce for those people, students, our institution educates this idea that, let's say, what the way they are thought is something which they can change, they can demand change, and they can explore together change. There is this idea of undercommons, very interesting. Relation between people working and people of the undercommon, many kind of relation, many kind of help relation, many kind of solidarities between them. All that are interstices, not trying to transform the institution, but interstices where something like magic could happen. Magic meaning something which that something which was seemingly impossible may become not the fact, but an interesting, appetizing processual possibility. So I think that we should not complain. We should say that we are in a place, like many places which are ecologically devastated, but we have the great change to see young people, among which many, not all, but some, let's say many or some, wish for something else, another kind of it is our responsibility. It is our responsibility to answer their not their quest for truth, but their quest for relevance. I think that to become, let's say, digne, worthy to address them, who we know will know a world which we cannot imagine to become worthy to address these people who are engaged in a story we will not know the end of it. For me, at least, for you, you will know more. It is a privileged situation. We can make a difference for them. How can we make a difference for them? But they are what matter.
I think that's a really wonderful way to see the path, or a potential path, for the institution, or many paths in fact, but with the interstices and the undercurrents and the looking to those who will see more. Yeah, thank you.
Yes, thank you so much, Isabelle, for taking the time to speak with us.
I loved our conversation. Just sorry for my English, but it's like that.
Your English is exquisite. So thank you so much for the conversation.
Thank you for your patience with us. Thank you.
No,
yes, absolutely.
It was a joy.
And now it only remains to thank you, the listeners, for tuning into the Insurrection Interviews podcast. The podcast is part of Magic and Ecology, a year-long series of talks and online events where we invite researchers thinking about magic in relation to ecology and practitioners working with magic to transform modes of earth living in order to enable collaborative thinking across disciplines and practices. Magic and Ecology is hosted by the Centre for Research in the Arts, Social Sciences and Humanities at the University of Cambridge, and co-convened by Jördis Becker-Lindenthal, Sophie Lunn-Rockcliffe, and myself, Simone Kotver. For more information and details of how to sign up for our upcoming live online events in 2021, please visit our website at magicecology.crash.cam.ac.uk.